is it so inconsistent?
Construction's hard.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Brian Witt. I have the workforce management wizard to my left, Gary Fuchs. This is another episode of Construction is Hard. For those of you that don't know, we have a special program every year called the Champions Program, and we bring together some of our more innovative and kind of forward-thinking and truly just partners, groups that construction companies that have partnered with Rivet on this journey of revolutionizing labor operations and workforce management for construction, specifically in kind of that MEP realm. And so we've got a special event that we held out here with these contractors in Napa Valley, brought everybody out and just kind of spoke about what are things that we are looking forward to in the industry, where are things that the Rivet platform is excelling and where we could do better. And after an entire day of harassing you guys, a few have been willing to stick around and continue to shoot the shit with us. And so today we're just really going to be talking about picking these guys' brains on what they're seeing in the industry inside of like Rivet labor operations idea and outside, and just in general, sort of what are we excited about and what things are glooming on the horizon for the industry. Gary and I are the least important people in the room right now. Let's do a round of introductions and do me a favor, guys. Give your name, kind of what hat you wear at your company. Tell us a little bit about your company, where you're at, what scale, and how long you've been with Rivet.
Yeah, my name's Andrew Aker, workforce management with Interstates, based out of Iowa. We're kind of nationwide, have about 1,600 employees. About 800 of those are electricians that travel around the country.
Kyle Sutter, VP Operations with Westphal and Company, located in Madison, Wisconsin, just about 500 field electricians.
Stephen Drouin with Interstate Electrical. We're headquartered in North Billerica, Massachusetts. Have about 700 electricians company-wide, and I'm the Vice President of Technology.
I'm the small guy in the room. This is Kevin Michel with Xcel Mechanical. We are a mechanical, plumbing, and sheet metal contractor. Southern California, we have about 175 to 200 people in the field. I'm the president of the company.
And I'm Ryan Meitl. I'm the CEO of Rivet Work. I usually try to stay on the spotlight, let these two guys create all the noise, but we're about 45 employees-ish today, and I've been with Rivet since the beginning.
Everybody in this room, this just hit me. Everyone in this room, I believe, have their PMs engaged or contributing somehow to workforce management. So I'm going to take a cheap shot here. And Gary and I have talked about this in the past in past episodes, but I want to hear it. We've talked about, you don't need to take it from Gary and I. There are other people out in the industry, we've said, that have figured this out and are doing great things. I want to hear what you guys, here's a typical occurrence. All right, so bear with me here. We're talking with a new company who's assessing workforce management, and that company may or may not have their PMs engaged with labor operations, meaning who should be on my job, when do we accept more labor on the job, when should people be leaving the job or turning it down. They might not have those PMs very involved with that process, and it might be a new concept to them. I'd love to hear from you guys. Just what would you tell a contractor that's evaluating a workforce management platform and is like, this is a tool for the superintendents, not the PMs?
I can start. We actually don't have our superintendents using the application at all. It's strictly a tool for project management and our executive leadership team. So our project management is responsible for managing their projects, and it starts with them. They have to forecast their projects. When we first kicked off use of the application, we probably had 60 to 70% max of our projects being forecasted, and by week 3, we had 100% of our projects being forecasted, and that's being done at the hands of every project manager company-wide. There's not a single project that we have that does not have a full forecast at this point.
I'll just go with when you have a project manager assigned to every project and they're forecasting it or scheduling it, you can really get the visibility to what the future of your company looks like. So having them be financially involved in the project and understanding what their labor looks like, for me as a labor manager, allows me to make some really wise decisions of what happens to Westphal.
Yeah, I would add that getting them engaged and getting into the platform and being able to help with that forecast. We're now able to spend our time on conversations that are important instead of talking about the things that should already be done. So it's allowing us to get that done already, and then we're using that information to inform decisions and promote conversations that need to happen.
Tell me about your labor meeting. How's that changed like over time?
Yeah. So typically, we were doing every week, and we'd have different groups meet at different times, but we bring the project managers together, and we go through each project. Where we sit, where are your needs, what do you need, what's coming up. Using Rivet has allowed us to streamline that. So really now it's just a check. Is this good, or do we need to make adjustments? And it's moved from every week to every 2 weeks. And there's always a voice in the back of my head saying, why do we do this at all? Like, it's not needed. Let's spend our time where we need to spend it and let this tool do the work for us. So that's where it's really it's taken us so far, and I think it's going to get us to the point where again, we just need to have those conversations on the things that are important and not just go around the room and waste time.
You're talking about getting rid of the things that have now become trivial and focusing on things that have become really important. And we're not even talking about the field force, right? I'd love to get a measure on how productivity gets increased just by that. And who would have ever thought that you could get yourself to a point where you're considering eliminating your labor management meetings? That's unheard of. How many people are in those meetings on a weekly basis, right? How many? A dozen? 1 hour? 2?
Yeah, yep, at least.
Yeah, you don't recoup. And back when you were doing it with a spreadsheet, you were looking at information that was in the past, basically. And the keeper of the spreadsheet kept the information to themselves, and things would change during the course of the week, and you weren't able to see it. So again, I think what you all are starting to visualize here and believe it is that this real time single source of data with transparency is a real thing. And it's what really was what driving this.
For us, our project managers are responsible for all financial reporting on all their projects. So it was a lot harder before because they have to project, obviously, labor, material, subs. And that projection of labor would vary so much. You guys talked about it in your first year series about the WIP and profit fade and, when you have to report that. So when the project managers now each month, we have what's called a cost to complete meeting. We do it once a month, and they do their projections on their job. Their labor projections are much more accurate than they used to be. You're just talking about spreadsheets and them hidden away. You have your 3-week meeting, and project managers are in there and superintendents, and there was no visibility into the schedule. You'd be talking about manpower and what needs to happen, but it was hit, on someone's spreadsheet, and you'd walk away and not really know what's going on. Now we do it. We have it up on the board. We have 2 screens. We have the financial piece of it, and then we have the scheduling piece of it. So we can, when we're going through the 3-week look ahead, we can look at manpower loading and discuss that. And then on the opposite screen, we have the financials. And if there's a problem on financials, we can discuss that too. So it has just made our financial forecasting so much better. It's made everything a lot more transparent. And then with the project managers communicating with the foreman, it has just made collaboration and communication that much better because they have to. They have to come to the 3-week look ahead and be able to talk about the upcoming project. So just transparency, more accuracy, and then just the communication, which you would think, your project manager and your foreman are talking every day. That isn't always the case. And this makes them, they have to communicate. And so it's just on many levels, it's been a benefit.
Tell me, you got a job you and I were talking about not long ago, and you had if you're comfortable sharing, you had a foreman that was not anticipating how much work was still really out there, but you guys got out ahead of it. You remember our conversation?
Yeah. So it was one of the, we were talking a lot about this today, and forecasting, And to do accurate forecasting, you need to have accurate schedules. And, some schedules are okay, but it seems like the GC schedules are slipping all the time right now and starting late and pushing out. So we're talking about proper ramp up and proper ramp down, so you don't have the profit fade on the job. But on this project that you're talking about, we were supposed to have a lot more manpower on the job to start, and the schedule just kept pushing and pushing. And then, so what do? The end date basically doesn't change, and you're stacking, compressing to try to finish it at the end. So it gave us the insight to look at the manpower that was needed. But another thing that we talked a lot about today was when you have that schedule compression and stacking, you're trying to talk to the GC about costs. Like, this is costing us a lot more money, and try to verbally explain it or lay out, a regular Gantt chart schedule versus seeing it on a graph. It's just, the picture paints 1,000 words. So it helps in that also identify, communicate to the GC how it's affecting your workforce management.
Our project managers at Rivet are helping make the workforce management platform better. But just kind of like in that vein of what I would say to those contractors that struggle to get their PMs engaged. We talked a lot today about how this is a partnership between us and the contractors that we work with, and when talking about the partnership between PMs and the field leadership, your superintendents, like a successful project is a partnership. It's a result of a strong partnership. I know, Kyle, you've talked about that a lot in the time that we spent together, and so that's the main thing. I think like the best project outcomes happen when you have like a really strong partnership, and in this case, it's between the project manager and the field leadership.
And I think that's something too. We're not talking about when Gary and I we've talked about this topic many times, but the idea of engaging the project managers or a project stakeholder on the labor aspect of the labor factor on a job doesn't mean you're changing the dynamic necessarily in the company. It doesn't mean you're changing people's job descriptions. It just means you're creating an invested interest from another party that has visibility into that part of the job. And now they have insights, or they can help make it more successful. It's not about, it's not always the negative. It's now they can help make it more successful, rather than in the past, they were kind of on the sidelines, just shouting words of encouragement or waiting to see what happened. And it's like, well, I guess that's how the cookie crumbled, but you're getting a team approach. You're getting more people that can work towards a better product rather than kind of like waiting to see what happens.
I like to go to sports analogies. It's a team, right? The football team doesn't break the huddle and go up to the line of scrimmage, and the quarterback's the only one that knows what the plan is, right? That wouldn't work very well. So they go over the plan in the huddle, and they go out and try to execute it. So it is a relationship between the project manager and the superintendent or the foreman or whoever he's dealing with in the field forces, but it's also other members of the team that we don't think about a lot of times. It's the prefab guy, it's the detailers that have to know what the plan is as well, safety people. And if you have a platform that you're able to communicate effectively across the entire team, you're going to have some pretty good success, because you're not, I know we've all been there where someone forgot to notify the safety person that we're going into a confined space situation, and then it was the 11th hour, and all of a sudden there's a big scramble going on trying to round up equipment and qualified people and such, and a lot of times that you can't pull it off, and it gets to be a very, very expensive endeavor. So it's the team and the team involvement.
That's a key point that he brought up. So we have a view-only security group that we set up in Rivet for our safety department and for our HR team, so that they can at all times look at the platform and see who they're going to be visiting, when the projects are going to be hitting. Our prefab team also has a view-only security setting, so that they can log into Rivet and see when the jobs are hitting, so that they know that the production dates that they've been receiving from the superintendent are accurate. That they're really going to need that material on XYZ date to be able to produce it on time and just in time delivery. So
Okay, one of the things I want to get into next is we have some people that have been in the industry for a while. They have perspective on the industry that is hard won and hard earned. I want to get a sense from each of you of when you think of this industry as a whole in the next 5 to 10 years, what are the things that that keep you up at night, and what are some of the things that you're excited about that you're seeing happening and you think are hopeful? Because it can't be all doom and gloom. So we want to know what are some of the things that's like, hey, I'm worried about this in the future, but I'm also excited about these things. So anybody willing to jump on this first?
I'll go first. We discussed it a little bit today, but a lot of the knowledge is going to be retiring in this industry, and so one of the concerns is passing that knowledge on to the younger folks, so we can keep the tradition going. So that's a challenge. One of the things also that we talked about is using the electronics and modern day technology, workforce management. I think that that's actually going to be more beneficial in the future with the younger generation. I just think that kids these days are they're getting an iPad at 4 years old. So as that younger generation moves in, it's going to be easier for to use platforms like Rivet, where we've talked about some of maybe people that aren't as computer literate or as savvy on the computer. They might be scared of it a little bit. So one of the challenges is getting that knowledge out and letting the younger generation learn from that knowledge and use the new tools that are going to be coming available or are already available. So that's a little kind of in the same breath. It's it's positive and negative in the same breath, because you're losing some of the knowledge, but you're getting in some of the youth that can hopefully gain some of that knowledge and use new platforms to advance the industry.
Yeah, we talked a lot today, and just because of what we do in workforce management about workforce capacity. And so like looking at the industry, not just like any one company, like where's that gonna be, the capacity of the industry relative to, the amount of work, what's gonna happen. And on the amount of work side, like what's gonna happen with commercial real estate, what's gonna happen with commercial office, tenant improvements kind of like falling through the floor over the last couple of years since the pandemic. Is that gonna recover? Are people not going to build office towers anymore, or is that going to like fully recover? And then all the data center, compute center, AI stuff that's going on, particularly in the Midwest. It's been pretty interesting to watch. For me, like the 5 years ago, 10 years ago, all the travelers were in California, and now all the travelers are in the Midwest, and it's because of where all the data centers and stuff. And so just like all these mega projects, the battery centers, Ford, the auto industry, and then all the data center stuff. So just like that migration, and then is the workforce capacity for the country going to kind of like line out, or we get enough young people into the trades? And those are like, it's exciting, but also like scary, like what's going to happen, if the AI stuff sort of fizzles versus like they keep building more of them. If they keep building more of them, there's like not enough capacity. Right. To do all the work.
Along those lines, just to add to that, with COVID and work from home, and I see that's starting to fizzle out a little bit. You even saw like Amazon just lately was like, okay, at end of the year, everyone's back in the office. So I think that the trend of work from home, even though it's still here to stay, talking about building the towers and stuff like that.
Right.
Me personally, I don't think that the connection of the interaction amongst colleagues, that you can do that from work from home. And I think you're going to start to see that coming back. It already has started coming back in some of the major industries. So hopefully they're still building those big buildings and with a lot of tenants.
Yeah. And just one last thought on the work from home thing, just like, for those who don't know, I don't know if we talked about in the podcast before, but I think like, all of our contractor partners know, like we're a in-person company, and it's like a big part of, I think, the buy-in and how much like everybody cares. It's because we spend that time together. We spend that time with our customers. And so, I'm bought in on it pendulum swinging back that way like a little bit. Flexibility is a big part of the future. So the flexibility is here to stay, but you can't replace that in-person time together. So I think so, but will it be at the same capacity? Do we need like as many office towers, right? That kind of stuff. Like we'll see.
So for me, this is, we're here for workforce management, and one of the scariest things has been the depletion of the skilled construction workforce that's been happening for the last 10 years plus. What the exciting part is what we've done as a company for lean construction methodologies and adopting those for prefabrication, as well as our workforce planning tools that we're using with Rivet. I think we've gotten ahead of that curve. And what's really exciting to me is that next generation that's coming up has been a renewed push finally to get back in the trades. You can see that happening. There's a lot more kids that are choosing the trades over college, and that's a huge need that we haven't had the proper push for, I think, for quite a long time. So that's exciting to see. So the combination of those three things for us as a company, I think is real promising for us in the future.
Yeah, and I'll echo to that. Everybody's scared about the amount of work that's out there. So that's the scared part, right? There's so much, what can a company do to continue to grow and be successful? But I was just thinking, as we're thinking about this question, like the cliche of all of us got an opportunity at one point in our careers. Well, when I look at Westphal, and I'm assuming all of us echo the same thing, like there's so many opportunities for younger people that want to be really good at the trades, and to give them that opportunity and then watch them excel and just take off and feel pride in what they've built is one of the most rewarding things for me. So that double-edged sword, right? There's a lot out there, but the opportunity for growth, like personal growth for a lot of electricians is there. And if they want it, they can go get it. And just back to the data thing, like providing all the data to the way we look at projects now, like gives people a really good chance to be successful.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Obviously, the diminished workforce continues to be scary, but the cool part that's coming out of that is, construction. The way we built stuff didn't change for decades, and now the whole industry is having to adapt. So all the emerging technology, it's really combining tech and construction. So things from BIM modeling and prefabrication to 3D models and the use of augmented reality for augmented reality headsets for installs. So you're not pulling a tape measure 150 times to install 150 trapeze. Instead, you're putting the glasses on and just lining it up. Some people think that's taking the skill out of the trade. I think it's adapting to the way the world's going to be, right? So less people to do the work, more work to do in a shorter period of time. The timelines continue to get smaller. So we've had to adapt to figure out how to get it done. So I think that's pretty exciting.
That piece too, that brings up not taking the skill out of the skilled labor, so to speak, but as there's more work and we're going to need to bring more humans. I had a past colleague who always stressed about the, you're dealing with humans, and it's not to be negative. Everybody's unique and a special snowflake. We're all special, but we're also all just humans, and we're trying to get humans to do certain tasks in certain orders, and that's going to make the company money, and that's really why we're all here. And he always had a good point of, if you can take something and make it 1 or 2 steps easier for a human to achieve, you opened up the pool of people who could achieve that now 5 to 10-fold, not 1 or 2-fold, but 5 to 10-fold. So the more simple you make something, the more humans you're going to be able to mobilize and make effective at that task or at that thing, and you're going to be more successful because you have more flexibility now. I think there's something to be said about that, and as well as what we're talking about with workforce management and like Rivet, you are taking something that I think all of you would agree, a project manager is not naturally built. My degree was supposed to be a PM, and let's just say I would not hold water with any of you. So it's, you're not supposed to be able to just naturally walk in and manage labor. But holy shit, if there was a tool like this that I could walk into an organization and Gary, could be like, you're a dumbass, but look at this tool and it might roughly help you not screw up, or at least it gives me guidance and visibility into what you're thinking and help me guide you to success. That's a big deal. But I mean, when I was going through classes, there was not one ever about labor from a project manager side. It was all about P6. It was all about budgets. It was all about managing trade partners. There was nothing about actually trying to like get a grip on labor. And it's one of those, again, of like where we see people coming into this industry and like, are they aware of this key piece that is the greatest factor, the greatest risk or reward on a job? And how do we make it something that is simple for humans to do more consistently and more frequently? I want to go back to something real quick on. Okay.
You gotta give Gary his turn. What are you doing?
Dumbass. Okay. To Andrew's point, let's do more with less, right? And that's what's happening. You take the skill out of the trade. Where's the skill? Is the skill standing on a lift and stringing out a tape 6 feet and watching it collapse 3 times before you get a true measurement? and then break your pencil on the ceiling and then have to go get another one or sharpen it and then make a mark? Or is the skill really in the ability to use the augmented reality tools, right? I mean, put an augmented reality tool on me, I'm gonna fail. I'll guarantee it, right? It takes younger people that are inquisitive about what their future is like, and then just hold on a second.
Consider for a sec though, that's part of the problem. We just talked about it today, and I got a bone to pick, if I'm being honest. Everybody was like, well, there's some older guys that are just never going to do it. And yet at the same time, half the people in this room said, thou shalt. So why do the older guys just get a cop out?
They don't. That's not my point. I have glasses on. I can't see. That's what happens.
To be fair,
you kids running around that haven't experienced that yet, but that does make a difference. And so you're seeing this happen throughout a lot of different things throughout life, and construction is no different, right? You can't put a guy that's 5 years away from thinking about retiring and have him pick up and start doing things that a 30-year-old can do and it has the burn to do, right? And so
wait, does that guy
you
just
can
not
shut
do it?
that off.
No. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about it. So the guy that's 5 years away from retiring, do you just accept the fact that for 5 years they're not going to do it?
Okay, so I'm a labor manager. You know what I do with that guy? I maximize the use of his abilities. I exploit his talents. I don't put him in a situation where he's not going to succeed and he's going to fail. You have to put people in the right situation to win. And it doesn't make any difference how old they are. You as a manager, that's your responsibility.
I agree, but
to ensure that happens.
So we're talking augmented reality. Let's talk Rivet. You're a VP of operations and you're evaluating Rivet. You got a couple old guys that you're just not, I don't think they're going to touch the tool. So you just wait 5 years before you change your labor operations.
I find someone that can.
And
all right. I reallocate their strengths. I play to their strengths. They've got knowledge and experience and wisdom that younger person doesn't have. And if you can figure out a way to combine those skills and apply them properly, everyone's going to succeed. So these team members, your roles change as time goes on. As technology changes, and it's changing fast. If I were still in contracting, would be a burning thing inside me, worrying about keeping up. Because if you're not keeping up, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose in ways you can't even imagine. And so, yeah, there's a labor shortage, but there's also an increase in techniques and productivity tools that are out there that allow that to happen. Water always seeks its own level, right? Projects are getting extended out. You get a construction job 10 years ago, it takes 16 months. Okay, that's what we're going to do it in 16 months, and they happen. Now they're taking 24 months. Is that the new reality? How long is that going to last? Because the labor force can't keep up with the schedule. And so, yeah, things are changing. There's always going to be change. But if you start adapting to that change and keep your wits about where you want to, and I got my wit about me right here. You keep your senses on what direction you're going, and do a proper job with your management, and keep guiding your team the way it should be. You're going to win. You're going to win big time, especially if you're staying on top of the technology that's out there and available.
So you guys, you have most of you have labor managers and stuff that are a little bit older on, and you all have this tool. What is your, when you think of those individuals, do you anticipate them going to use this new tool? Is it something that you kind of, how do you approach that? Because that's a real thing. There's a lot of companies that we talk to and they're like, well, we got these people and they're just, I don't think they're going to use it. They're too close to retirement, old dog, new tricks kind of thing. How do you guys approach it?
We don't think that way at all. All of our project managers are using the tool regardless of their age. Age doesn't have a play in this conversation as far as we're concerned. All of our PMs have we have the same level of expectations for all of our project managers company-wide, regardless of their region, their age, we're all doing things the same way company-wide. So our project managers are responsible for the financials of their project. So they have to use the same tools company-wide to be able to provide the same reporting structure company-wide.
I agree with that.
Andrew agrees, for the record.
I just got lucky when I came into this role. I didn't know the job so I'm one of those younger guys, I guess you could say. I didn't know this role without a workforce management tool. So got the training on it, took off, hopefully enhanced it since Gary left. But yeah, I don't know how you would do without it, I guess.
So I'd say that we, from the project management standpoint, and my superintendents, they aren't super old. So it wasn't that big of a push to get them to start using it. But we discussed this a little earlier today, is first of all, this program is pretty user-friendly, so it's not super hard to master. But the other thing too is, for anybody thinking about doing this, it has to be a company-wide decision. I'm the president of the company. When I started listening to you guys' podcast, I knew right away it was a program that we wanted to do. And so it's coming from upper management, executives across. So if you just take it and say, here's this new tool, go use it, and you're not enforcing it from the top down, it would have the ability to just kind of not be used kind of half-assed, or you use it for a little while and then it goes away. So you just need to make sure that you're consistent and from top down, that it's the way that the company needs to go.
That is a huge piece. Just real quick, around the horn, I want you guys to just give us a shout on who in the company ultimately was driving this workforce management initiative. So like when you think of like, if somebody wasn't going to do it, who did it escalate to? And ultimately, how high could it escalate? Who was the eventual person that it would stop escalating with?
So for us, it was me. So I came into this position, like Kyle, we had a system in place that just wasn't working well. I got in contact with some folks at Rivet, started talking. So I took that, basically made my case to our executive team for approval. Once I was able to make the case, I got the go ahead to move forward. So,
and so the executive team is backing you on this needs to happen.
Yes, 100%.
Ditto, I guess. Just the executive team sees the value, and I think it goes back to the time that it saves. When we talk about, we sat here and talked about labor meetings ever since workforce management started. And to have Andrew say, yeah, we do it for 10 minutes every other week, but I don't know if we need it. Like, when an executive team sees that, they're freeing up their really smart people to do stuff. So for us, driven from the top.
Our entire leadership team identified the need years ago to forecast labor better than we were doing with our spreadsheets or our magnet boards or whatever the different regions of our business were doing at the time. So myself included in that leadership team, we found a solution at the time. It was the first one around, and it didn't pan out. So we moved to a much better solution with Rivet.
So for us, when you have from leadership and you're pushing it down on someone, there's maybe sometimes a little bit of pushback, like, why are they making us do this? But in our particular case, I'm not sure who it was, but someone from your marketing team had contacted, I don't even know how, but contacted our superintendents, and they actually, whether it was a demo or what, they liked the program. So they came to me and they said, hey, we'd like this, for scheduling. I said, okay. And then we went to the conference in Vegas and met you, and you showed us the program. And so it was kind of a win-win. They already wanted it. So it wasn't really me shoving it down their throat. It was their idea, and I agreed with it. So it made it, for us, pretty easy for a buy-in.
All right, so we got 10 minutes. I want to cover 2 topics, okay? The first one, we got a unique situation here where all you guys, I believe, have seen or experienced directly succession planning. We just referenced it, but succession planning with the labor coordinator or the labor operation role. And what is that like with a tool where this information is captured and consolidated and the practice is kind of like defined, the process is defined in a platform versus not? And I want to talk about succession planning real quick. But then I also want to talk about, before we leave, just the idea of how do you create a workforce management initiative or a business case? How do you create a workforce management business case in a company? So first, let's talk a little bit about succession planning, and then I want to wrap up with the business case idea. So succession planning, for those of you that don't know, the guy on my right is Kyle, the guy on my left is Gary. Gary's old as dirt, but Kyle's not. And so Kyle took over for Gary a number of years ago, I think it's fair to say. So we'll start with this. So Gary, can you tell us a little bit about when you took over the labor operations role? And then Kyle, can you tell us about when you took it over?
I'm going to behave. And I'm going to be really nice to you, which is kind of on the characteristic. But so I was a young man when I took over for my predecessor, and I had worked with him in the field. Got to know him pretty. We were friends, and the day he left, he just said, "Well, I'm leaving now. It's all yours. You're going to do a better job than I'm doing, and good luck." And he walked out the door. That was pretty much the succession planning at that point. And I can remember sitting there at that desk, wondering what I should do. So I just started doing stuff. And I kept doing stuff for the next 35 years. And I'll let Kyle speak to this next. When I left, Kyle sat in my office for a year doing what I was doing, basically. And in the last 6 months, I retired 6 months before anybody really knew it. Because I was there, but I wasn't doing anything. Kyle pretty much was taking care of the whole operations. But, there's times we had some conversations and things like that. And a little earlier, Kyle was talking about these young, energetic guys that, you just love to see take the bull by the horns and flourish. And for me, that was Kyle. I got a chance to see that. Probably the worst thing that happened when I did retire, I ended up at Labor Chart in Kansas City, and I ran into you. And now I can't shake you. And and the other well-known, I have taught Brian everything I know, and he still doesn't know a damn thing. So I don't know what that tells you, but. Okay, you done? Okay.
I think the important part that Gary forgot to leave out of the story is I knew about it for probably about a year before I came in and started working with Gary. And on my first day, he said, well, you should probably go over to the local hardware store and buy yourself your card table that you're going to sit on for a year. So I got the opportunity to, sit at a card table in Gary's office, my now office, and just see the interaction that happens with labor, which is you can't make it up. You can't train it because it changes on a moment's notice, right? None of us know what happens when the phone is going to ring. But as I started to hear him answer the phone, stay calm, make logical decisions to help Westphal stay successful, like I just learned so much. And, as Gary always says, then people came in and started walking over to the card table instead of going to his desk. But, for those of you going through succession, like that time is so invaluable. And the 1 year, it was enough, but there could always be more. Gary was very good to me with getting me involved in our training earlier before we even talked about this role. So just starting to interact with a lot of field people, gaining their trust, speaking in front of them was really what helped us be successful in this change. And I mean, having a workforce management tool, we also talk about the secret spreadsheets. Like Westphal didn't have that, where there's a single source of truth. So it was a very easy transition for me as far as where people were at and where they were needed in the future.
Andrew, what about you as far as your experience?
Yeah, so we had a gentleman that did this job at Interstates for a really long time, and prior to me, he handed that torch off to another gentleman. At that time, it went more from spreadsheets and in my head knowledge to our original platform that we were with. I won't mention it. So he was able to really lay a great foundation. So when I came on board, the transition wasn't terrible. We had something in place. We had some good processes, and I was able to kind of take that and continue to run with it. Since then, I've got a few other folks that work with myself. Since we came on board with Rivet, we've hired another gentleman that helps me. I shouldn't say help. He does all the work, let's be honest. But just having this platform and as easy it was to learn, and all the information's there. And so really it's given us the ability to focus on what we need to focus on. But then I think one of the most important parts is it gives us the time to really, we're working with people, right? It's easy to sit behind a computer and look at names or numbers and, this person goes here, this person goes here. But each one of those numbers or names is a person. We travel nationally. That's really hard. That's hard on people. It's hard on families. So having that information to let us make better informed decisions. We don't always make the right ones, but we can very quickly know, hey, here's an opportunity to get someone back within driving distance of home so they can go home on the weekends or things like that. That's been awesome for us. So we have more time now to focus on the individuals than just trying to get the job done. It's made our jobs a lot easier, I think.
So I hadn't really even thought about the question of succession planning until you brought this up. But the prior succession from superintendent to superintendent, it's kind of like the hidden spreadsheet, right? I don't even know how the training went from one guy to another. It was probably, hey, this is how we use the spreadsheets and this is how we do it. It was never said in any of those meetings. But I think now, after posing that question, whoever is going to transition into the next labor supervisor, well, they're already going to be familiar with the program because they're using it as a foreman out in the field. So it's when they come in to start doing the succession planning, it's not going to be like, well, what is this that you're using? And let's start from scratch, because they've probably been, if they're going to be the next superintendent, they may have been in the field for 10 years already using it. So that succession, I think, will come a lot quicker and be more intuitive since they've already been working with the tool.
100%.
So succession planning doesn't really play into our use of Rivet because all of our project managers and all of our project administrators use the tool. So it's we don't have a centralized single person that is doing all the planning. It's all of our project managers and project administrators company wide. So.
And that's, I think, we've talked org structures before. Gary and I have talked about this. Like there are certain models where it's a central model, and then there's a dispersed model. And the dispersed model is PMs operating amongst other labor stakeholders and kind of like almost governing your own in a way. And then there's a central model where projects or labor stakeholders are going to a single point person, and then labor gets brokered back out. And both models can be very, very successful, but a platform should support either process or practice or ideology, almost, if you will.
The linear sports model that you're talking about, it requires a lot of planning for succession. The way you're set up, Steve, is awesome. You know, you dispersed the responsibilities across the team, and you pretty much made it bulletproof.
A lot of redundancies. Okay, we're running low on time. We got to wrap it up. One last thing around the horn. How do you create a workforce management business case in a company? This is a hard question, but I want you guys' best shot here. And Andrew, you're in the hot seat, so
How do you not do it? I don't know how anybody does this without it, to be honest. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you can walk into a dark room with a blindfold on and try to take your shot, but it's a lot easier when you got all the info in front of you. So I don't know how you don't use it.
I've said it a couple times now, but just creating time for the smart people, right? Get the source of truth, look at it, make the best decisions, move on.
I think to pile on to what you just said, Andrew, how do you not do it? You know, and a lot of companies are looking for the ROI. What is the ROI? And, you know, the short answer, and one of our contractors said it today in the meeting, I think it's a pretty good one, is what is your margin fade right now? What are you losing a year on margin fade? And whatever that answer is, you know, well, $1 million, say, throw out $1 million. Well, that's your ROI, because the contractors that we're here today are realizing, and that's proof that you can take that margin fade and basically eliminate it. So you can answer your own question in a way that pretty simple and easy to justify.
I think I said this before, that without a plan, you're shooting in the dark, but you're trying to find the perfect balance. So with a workforce planning tool, you're able to plan your workforce the most efficiently, because you don't want to take on so much work that you have to now use temporary labor, which is not as efficient and it's more costly. So that's going to eat into your profit and cause margin fade. And then at the other side of that, you don't want to have so little work that you don't have a home for people and you're laying people off. So finding that perfect balance to keep your guys working, or your whole team working as efficiently as possible, is going to make you the most profitable you can as a company.
For me, it was really, really simple. Kind of like, you know, why would you not do it? So, you know, as the owner of the company, you're always looking at ways, how are we gonna put more money on the bottom line? And for a construction company, it's labor, right? Your material's pretty much consistent, your subcontractors, so you put an estimate together, and, you know, your biggest liability is labor. So in my mind, it's like, okay, what do we got to do to save 5% on labor? If we save 5% on labor, you know, it's going to put X amount of dollars at the bottom line. So I was really focused on, you know, what processes and procedures and how we could do that. And you guys have heard me refer, but I listened to your guys' first series of podcasts, and you were like, everything that was in my mind about how do we do this or that, you guys addressed it in your podcast, and it was so a no-brainer. Like, how could we not do this? That literally, we I think I told you guys today, we listen to one of your podcasts every week in our labor meeting with some of our managers, and the very last one that you guys did was like ROI and talking about, you know, projecting ROI if you sell this to an owner or whatever. And I'm like, we don't need to listen to this. I don't need these guys to tell me about ROI. It's so no-brainer that if you don't get it, that how important it is, then you probably shouldn't be in a position making decisions like that. So it was super simple for us.
love it.
Just recap what both like Gary and Steve also said, you know, so how many of your projects come in on bid, you get the profit that you bid at, like margin fade, that's one number. And then your workforce capacity. You got so much overhead in the business. What's your number? You like to run 100, run 200, run 300. If you dip below, you got too much overhead now. Profit's going to erode for the business. And so how do you manage that? Is through, a platform like this.
So we did to wrap this whole thing up today, Gary and I sat down with another gentleman who's implemented 3 different workforce management platforms. He now works with Rivet, I'm proud to say. But we went through, and you guys would appreciate this, we went through every single workflow or series of events that we know every single contractor must incur. Someone must identify a need. Someone must schedule the need. Someone must decide. Someone must communicate those changes. And every single one, we broke it down across all the categories of workforce management. And if I recall, we came up with, for those of you that don't believe us, and these guys to our left and right, workforce management, coordinating labor across a company of 100 FTEs, just 100 FTEs, it's at least anywhere from 1,176 hours up to almost 1,700 hours a year. And that is across the labor coordinators, the project stakeholders, the labor stakeholders, the individual employees getting called and transferred from one place to the next. And we're getting ready to try to produce this.
That's conservative too.
And this
That's
when we're going through this, these guys were like, that takes 5 hours. And I'm like, let's call it 1 hour just to be safe. I mean, this is really, really conservative. In fact, we were worried people wouldn't believe us because the times were so short. So it's at least these numbers. But you guys have all picked up on these hours. We were hitting on it earlier. It's not that you're saving 1,100 or 1,500 hours a year. It's that you are saving those hours, and at least half of those hours will be reapplied in productive measures.
You're making money.
Wow, you're making money with them.
The difference between saving and making money.
And you guys are all proof of this. You guys have lived it. You're here. You stuck around extra. You're in Napa. We're wasting. I'm not wasting. We're just, asking for your time here to share the good gospel. But again, I can't thank you guys all enough. It has been a true pleasure getting to know you for the years ahead of this and now these past years, and you guys being here and giving us this time. It's a big deal. For those of you that have been paying attention to this podcast, again, Gary and I we're always uncomfortable when they do these, but it is proving to be that there are people out there. Kevin referenced it a few times that there are people out there that are hearing what we're saying, and it resonates, and we appreciate it. We want you guys to reach out and just know you're not alone, and there's a lot of people that have been in your shoes and have navigated that path. And so with all that being said, it's been another awesome year at Rivet, another incredible year for the contractor we've been working with, and I can't think of a better way to sign off this year's Construction is Hard podcast without saying construction is hard.
But it doesn't have to be. See you
Thanks,
next year.
everybody.